Hey everybody, my name is Andrew Davis and you are watching Season 3 of Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsors, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now, you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has also printed so many successful Kickstarter campaigns, a bunch of them you have even heard about on this very show. And they currently offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK, and Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And right now, they're running a promotion where listeners of my show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of a current order to get a 5% discount on their first order. So that is mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to receive a 5% discount on your first order. Also, we all need bags and boards, and I have a code with BCW Supplies. So use Pop Anime Comics at checkout to get 10% off your order. Inflation is hitting, and save yourself some money. 10% goes a long way. And then finally, I have a t-shirt that is up on Redbubble, and that's my t-shirt, everybody. So you can go pick that bad boy up, and it's a cool shirt. It's making fun of the most interesting man in the world, Amuro Ray, which is from Gundam, and Taco Bell, which are 3 of my 4 favorite things. So obviously, please go check that shirt out. And without further ado, I have somebody who's a friend and is killing it right now on Kickstarter, Larry Higgins. So welcome to the show, man.
Me. It's me. It's the HIGG.
Yeah, no, in which that obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with you. You're bagging and boarding and fulfilling your Kickstarter right now with Nyobi. And so I figured that's sort of where I think we should start for a bunch of people who already know that comic. You did almost $25,000 in your last campaign, but what is the basic story for everybody who doesn't know Nyobi?
Well, Nyobi is a Japanese pop star who is a genome, which is a genetic anomaly. So it's something not quite right with the genetic code, Andrew. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And these genetic anomalies allow these people to develop abilities that are difficult to classify. Basically, Andrew, they're mutants. And so Niobe happens to be one of these genomes, and her abilities to teleport. She can go great distances by opening up portals and traveling around that way. But she comes to learn, and we actually find this out in the way early issues of Niobe, that the more she uses her power, the more havoc it plays on her body, because the body is not really made to jump through time and space. It's a little bit of a system shock. So she's kind of playing with fire. But that becomes more evident as sort of the story goes on. She's got a little ways to go yet before it starts really messing with her.
Yeah, and to even go further into this, and we're going to dive into the Kickstarter in a second. Obviously, you have been building out Niobe for about 7 years, and then you just sort of did Niobe Origins, which was, I don't know exactly how to say this. It was either sort of a reboot slash soft relaunch and more of a main relaunch with, building out her and sort of reintroducing her out into the entire world, and you're fulfilling on that right now.
Sure. Well, I mean, the reboot didn't start with Origin, so it started with Birthright. So there was we were a time black and white comic book, and we had a different art team. And we did 4 issues of Niobe and one sort of offshoot called Avani, which was her main villain at the time. And those Kickstarters did okay. Like they were like $4,000 at the height. You know what I mean? For Niobe number 4 did like 4,200. And then there was a break, and the artist that was drawing Niobe at the time, Steve Boyu, had a lot going on at home. He just got a full-time job. He had to look after a handicapped sister. His mother had just died. Plus, he was doing his own book. He was doing a couple of books. So, we had a very sort of honest talk, where I said, I think it's time that, we switch gears a little bit, and, we're going to hire a different artist for Niobe, and, you need to do what you need to do, and, put out your book, and time to strike out on your own. You know what I mean?
Let's talk a little bit about that, because this is something that I think is something that a lot of people struggle with, is that
Well, it's a part of the story that a lot of people don't know either. But go on.
so one of the things I think it's very hard is that when you're in the middle of a book and then you say, hey, we need an art change, or we need a writer change,
Sure.
we need an editing change,
Yeah.
because and also, sometimes you need to change your entire publisher. If you're in a publisher, I had somebody on a while back who moved from Image to Dark Horse, and that's a big jump as well. And so what was that like? Because you didn't just change, the artist, you also changed adding color, you changed the certain story, stories became a little bit more political, and it's a very, very difficult thing, I think, and it's something that people fear. And so what was that like?
All right.
Because
Well, you're covering a lot of ground that really needs to. We need to back it up a bit, right? Let's start off with me, going on about Steve Boyu for a second. Steve Boyu, he was the black and white guy, and you're right. We did switch the art team. We ended up getting a guy named Samir Sameo, who was recommended to me by a guy named Kevin Perron, who does a book called Glacio with Behemoth Comics. Okay, Kevin at the time was sort of like acting as an agent for some of these people, helping them find work, and then Kevin would get a little piece of the pie for essentially hooking a couple of people up. So I took advantage of that service when he was offering it. Turned out to actually be good for us. We got Samir on board, and he did a lot of different comics for a lot of different indies, but he also had done comics that were actually published work, including comics that were along the lines of Scout Publishing. But the one thing that we sort of knew that we needed was color, right? Nyobi is not a book that really should be read in black and white. We only did black and white starting out because color's expensive, but I would never go back to black and white, even if I had to start all over again with nothing, because I find black and white is a viable way to get started, but at the same time, as a reader, it's like watching black and white TV. So something black, it's outdated, right?
Yeah.
I feel black and white comics are definitely outdated, just like watching black and white television is sort of outdated. It's sort of, and lots of people argue with me, and there's some books that work really good in black and white. Like Walking Dead, was a black and white comic. But I'll tell you, I much would have rather seen Walking Dead in color. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mirage Studios was black and white, but once IDW got a hold of it, after Mirage Studios and all that sort of stuff, Image Comics I think had Turtles for a while. Was color, you know what I mean? So color was absolute, and I'll tell you what happened. We got Dan Olvera on colors, right? We ran an ad. Basically, I was looking for a colorist. Send me your samples, send me your rates, and we got it down to two guys, and both guys are, to steal a word from you, phenomenal, right? Phenomenal. Russ Cassidy and Dan Olvera, and I had each of them do a test page. Here's a page. I'll pay you for the pages, but you each color a page, and I'll pick the best one. And Dan just edged out Russ slightly, but I mean, Russ has also improved quite drastically over the last little while. So I mean, I wasn't going to go wrong, sort of either way. But once we did color, it took a little longer to put together the book. Obviously, this was Birthright #1 when we, sort of shifted gears, which is actually I have one right in front of me because it's sold on the website. I got to actually pack this up tonight. But this is the Steph Wilson cover of Birthright. The one that you said was, yeah, there you go. A little hard to find. They're not really not that hard to find. They're on my Gumroad. You know what I mean? And someone bought one, maybe they watched your show and decided that they wanted one. I don't know, but I got to sign this and pack this up. But this is when we, went to color and changed art team. And I don't know if you ever seen Nyobi in the black and white days, Andrew, any pictures, photos, if you read any digital, like, I don't know how much Nyobi you've actually seen, but I'll tell you, when you go to color, it's night and day. You know what I mean? And when we went to color, when we launched the Kickstarter, this became our highest earning Kickstarter at that point, and it raised $7,000. And I'll tell you, I'm like, oh man, $7,000! I was ecstatic. You know what I mean? Like, Thrilled. And then we did Birthright #2, and that did 16,000. You know what I mean?
So
Which was
let's
over
talk about
double,
that
right?
for a second, because obviously color really does sell, and that's something that is a big, I guess, a factor that changes the game in a lot of ways, because color tells a story in a lot of ways and also conveys emotion and conveys a lot of other things. And so, do you think that that part of the Kickstarter of Birthright was also due to color,
Oh
as well
yeah.
as you were also doing some other stuff too that they were going to get?
No, but the if it was a black and white comic, there's no way it would have done as well. No way. It's because Nyobi's a colorful character. She's got lots of pinks and purples that kind of need to be seen. You know what I mean? She uses, flashy powers, like light up portals. You kind of can only really recreate that with color. And by the way, I want to give a big shout out to the people in the chat right now. We got Pete Vask, who I
Yeah, I'm
hear
the voice that's that.
right? We have Max DeVille in the chat. We have Phil Man X, Phil Leon, the Electric Crayon in the chat. And Max is talking about The Last Ronin wouldn't work in color. I thought it was in color. I mean, I have all 4 of them back there. I go look.
So to even go into this further, because obviously, since we're talking about Birthright, and this is your book
That's Birthright #2. That's what did the 16 grand, which was again sort of mind blowing, brother.
And so obviously that's Birthright, and then the one that you're right now, what you're doing right now is you're back importing Nyobi Origins, which is the last one that did about almost 25,000.
Yeah, keep in mind that's 25,000 Canadian, which is about 20 grand American.
So I mean, it's a pretty successful Kickstarter in a lot of ways, and I did $855, and I was ecstatic on mine. So,
right.
I can't imagine what that's like for you, because obviously one of the things that's going on with you is that you keep on growing, where you went from doing 4 grand to 7 grand to doing 16 now to 20. And what is that like? Because obviously you're doing a bunch of stuff right in the Kickstarter world that I think a lot of people either don't get, or it's hard to emulate, and they don't understand that it's also a long road to get where you're at.
Well, there's lots of factors in that, though, right? There was A, going to color, B, having a little bit more money to sort of play with than we had before. And by a little bit, I only mean a little bit. Like, I sold a book on eBay for $1,000, which was enough to sort of start paying down the color pages. You know what I mean? So with that $1,000, we were able to get like half the book colored, and I just sort of paid the rest out of pocket. But without that $1,000, I don't know if I would have had, any money at all to start paying them the color pages. So there was that, but there was also hiring people, say, and you had them on your show the other night, and I'll tell you something. It was one of your best interviews you've ever done. Was the one you had with Steph Wilson. Okay. And this is the Steph Wilson cover, like we were just sort of mentioning. And the thing,
Thank you for that, because I was scared shitless in that interview.
But the reason why that interview was so good is because you showed so much of his work, and for every piece that you showed, Steph Wilson had a story to go along with it. You know what I mean? And so it was kind of cool to see the little stories and behind the scenes, sort of how each cover sort of came about. So we did that. We hired guys like Steph Wilson. We hired a guy by the name of Paul Green, which because you're a Zenoscope collector guy, and between going to color and having Paul Green was sort of what launched it, right? And then we have Paul Green again for Birthright 2, and that was the highest selling cover that we've ever had, even to this day, right? And then when we did Origins, it was just people had liked Birthright so much, I think, that they were willing to go in on Origins. And you said something that I sort of want to go back on. You said that I don't know if you said it outright or implied that the reboot started here with this because it's an origin story. It's going to be in stores. And so, a lot of people would think, okay, this is the first one of the new sort of chapter, if you will. But that's actually not true. It actually started with Birthright. So we did 2 issues of Birthright, which is the 2-part miniseries. And we don't really explain anything about Nyobi's history in that. It's just Nyobi, boom, is here and she's dealing with some shit. But in Origins, we actually, now that we've introduced Birthright, not only as a Kickstarter, but as Exciting Comics 17 to 20, so that people in the shops can go check it out. Then I decided, okay, now let's do her origin story, but we're not going to put that in the anthology series, right? I want, AP to sort of put it out on its own,
So we're gonna back up for 1 second.
Sure.
I do want to show what you're actually packing up. And
well, right now I'm packing up the Chris Enoch cover.
So let me pull that up for everybody
Sure.
who can see it. If you can't see it and you're listening to
full
this
screen,
audio,
man. It's better to see this. Digital image is one thing. You want to see the actual book, man. Full screen. Put me on the Larrytron.
I'm gonna try. I'm just gonna try, everybody.
You don't know how to do it?
I know how to do it.
Are you sure? All right,
calm down.
So this is the beautiful Chris Enoch cover. This is not even the foil, man. Wait till I show you the foil here a little later. This is a 36-page book, nice thick book, like the size of a good old-fashioned Marvel annual. And this does tell the origin story of Nyobi, right? But what it also does is it sets up lots of things for future issues now. And the origin story came from a 2-page bio I wrote in 2015 that was in the back of Nyobi #1. And so this is completely inspired by that 2-page bio. And I took that bio, I made it into a comic book, and I added some extra things in there. You know what I mean? Which was just cool, man. I mean, we got this new character here, Sybil, who's shown up on the scene. Now you're going to see lots of her in future Nyobi issues now that we've introduced her. We got characters like this ninja chick here, who I'm not going to tell you who she is, but she's going to be something very important coming up in the Nyobi universe as well. Like, this book's got several first appearances in it. It's going to set up. Go ahead, brother.
And you can take me down. Yeah, I'm going to take you down. I'm going to show a few more, covers. And obviously, there's a method to my madness, everybody. So
sure.
Obviously, this is that character.
That's Sybil, yeah. And so the Sibyls were basically, go back to her for a sec. Sibyls were basically oracles in Greek mythology. Like, they were women who could see the future and sort of prophesize. And she sort of acts the same way, where one of her main powers is actually being able to view things in the future and sort of predict things to come. She's basically a high-powered telepath. And you'll see this golden medallion she wears around her neck. That's basically an ancient item that she uses to sort of enhance her powers. And then the armor she got on is just that. It's armor to sort of protect herself and give her some couple cool high-tech abilities. She's going to be a really cool fucking character. And that cover is a beautiful cover by Juan Antonio Altaveras, who's also the interior artist of the book. Right? So that was cover B. And cover B, a lot of, we didn't sell a lot of copies of cover B. I think people wanted, covers with Nyobi on it. But I think this is sort of the one that got away that I think people are going to want down the road, especially Sybil is a hit. And I know she will be once people read her. You know what I mean? People are going to want to know more about her.
And then to even go further, and I'm doing these slightly out of order, but obviously
sure.
I picked this one because this is a 607 tribute.
That is done by a man by the name of David Fott. Once again, colored by Dan the Man Overa.
And so I like this.
David, David offered to draw that for free. Like I mentioned something about, I would love to do the J. Scott Campbell challenge with Nyobi because that's where that comes from. And David's like, I'll draw that and we make it a cover. I'm like, absolutely, we'll make it a cover. And I still gave him some money for it,
And this was one of the ones that he did. I think it was one of the last covers he did before he had a bad bout, I think, with COVID, I believe. And
and also battling cancer, dude.
And so obviously, and he's now a lot better off. Just so
I still think he's dealing with some stuff, but he's on that sort of road to recovery, I think. And I showed him the cover. He loved it. Like, I showed him the printed version, and I can't wait to get him out some copies here at some point.
And then this is another one.
That
is book to find.
Yeah. That right there. That's another homage cover to Catwoman I got a whole stack of them, Andy. And there's more than this of that very cover right there. And that is Luigi Terrell from Rags. And this is the homage to Adam Hughes' Catwoman 51, that infamous photo where she's in the sort of like the mugshot, you know.
And then obviously my good friend and I love CB Zane and I enjoy Might, and so that's another tribute to Campbell in a lot of ways as well.
That is a tribute to Campbell. That's from a Gen 13 Supergirl crossover comic. I think it's number 2. And so, you know, it's just like, you know, Caitlin Fairchild's looking up at Supergirl, Supergirl sort of like looking down at her, you know what I mean? It's just a really sort of cool sort of team up cover. And that's the Mighty Might, obviously, from CB Zane, which was like a breakaway hit on Kickstarter. And she's just a cool character, you know, like she's the type of superhero that could be on a team with Nyobi, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I enjoy Might, where I find Might to be very similar to Critter in a lot of ways, where it's sort of a wholesome, fun, you know, flirty type character, but it's not over sex driven type of character. And it's just classic superhero.
No, that's Bad Bunny, sir.
I'm sorry, we don't talk about Canadian destroyers on this show.
No, that's CBZ's other book there, Bad Bunny, isn't it? And that one's pretty high.
It was a wrestling joke. It was a wrestling joke. You know, rapper Bad Bunny, he was just in WWE in the Royal Rumble. It's such a bad joke.
I didn't watch the Royal Rumble. You kidding me?
It's all right. It's all right. It was a bad show, but it apparently got more ratings than anything else. So go figure that out.
Well, you had Sasha Banks dressed up as Sailor Moon. I mean, I think that's going to bring in the ratings.
That was fucking awesome. That was like the highlight
right?
of the Royal Rumble.
That probably was the highlight of the show, you know. We have Sam Quinton says Might is awesome. I agree.
Yeah, I enjoyed Might a lot. And then this is obviously some RB White. And that's another book who's come out.
That's a nice sort of saucy cover right there. You know what I mean? You should see the cover that he just did for us for Nyobi fucking Outbreak. It will blow your mind.
And this is another one that's fun.
That is one that looks really like, I like this image a lot, but when you see it in print, it's so much better with the logo and stuff. Like this is actually a really nice cover by Joel Souza, who's got that. And I was just watching this the other night, you know, Batman, the animated series, the 90s stuff. They have it on our Cartoon Network here, like at 4 a.m. So I was watching that when I was like stuck, you know, at my work in a snowstorm. So yeah, he's got that fun 90s Bruce Timm, you know, almost Darwin Cook sort of vibe going on there. He was a lucky find. Yeah, that's the one that Pete got. I think is the Joel Souza one.
Yeah, this it was the David Froth or the Joel Souza, and it was like a toss up between those two for me because they're both just so just nice, and I feel like they embody Nyobi, and they're also different.
Well, he also did a different costume, right? I mean, typically Nyobi has like a little leather jacket and a skirt and her boots. He said, "Can I draw a different outfit?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, go nuts, man. She's a woman. She's gonna wear lots of different clothes, brother. You know what I mean?"
And then there's this one too.
That is cover A. That's done by Juan Antonio Altaveras, again, the interior artist. So he did 2 covers for us. And that's the great cover. That also looks really nice in print. That cover right there. And again, colors by Dan Alvera. We had, Andrew, 11 different covers for that campaign. 11.
And so let's talk about that because obviously I'm a cover guy.
Right.
I love variants.
Yeah.
I buy a bunch of comics now.
I love Variant Grant too, man. Get well, brother.
Yeah. I hope he's doing better, and you know, he's a fighter from what I hear.
He is, brother.
You know, and
every time someone says variant, I always think variant. You know what I mean? It's a shout out to my boy. Go on, brother.
But yeah, no, I actually like Indie Vault. They're great, and they've been nice to me.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways. And so I hope he's doing better, and you know, he's a fighter, and we wish him well. At least absolutely. I do, and you do as well. So
yeah,
you know, but what is that like to book so many covers? Because obviously people like choice, and then more importantly, there's always the one that people want to spec on, and you also want to I would imagine that you're at a stage where you also want to give work to people and that you want your Kickstarter to get funded in a lot of ways because people say, I like these two covers. And if you only have three covers, they might not get another cover, for instance. So what is that like? Because it's tricky when you're building out Kickstarters in that fashion.
Mhm. Well, let's not talk about what it's like. Let's talk about why that decision was made, right? The reason why we did 11 covers was because I want to do something really big for the origin Kickstarter, right? It's her origin story. This is, if I'm going to go all out on a campaign, it's going to be her origin story because this is, for a lot of people, this is going to be their first look at Nyobi, whether it's through the Kickstarter or whether they're getting it at the store, right? A lot of people who got Origins probably never read Birthright and they probably never read the black and white stuff. So I wanted Origins to catch the eye. So I wanted, a hefty amount of variant covers. I wasn't planning though, dude, on 11, right? 11 happened because a couple of guys came in out of sort of nowhere and said, I want to do covers for you. You know what I mean? And it was hard to say no. Like, when David Fott offered to do a free cover, okay, yeah, man, we'll take a free cover. So that added on, right? That became one of the 11. You know what I mean? Initially we weren't going to do a Sybil cover, but I started to think about it and I really wanted to sort of market and sell that character. And I figured we put her on a variant and that would be the only variant that has her on it. You know what I mean? So that, added on an extra cover. So Juan had to do 2 covers, so now we're at 3, right? Chris Enoch was a big coup. He had mentioned on Facebook that he wanted to do a Nyobi cover. And I looked into him and I'm like, shit, he's worked for Image Comics. He's worked for fucking Coffin Comics. He's a big name. And so we had to jump on that. Justin Hunt was another guy that came out of the blue and said, I want to do a cover for you. Okay, cool. You know what I mean? Courtney Rose Dameron said, I want to be in, pick me. And, the price was right with her and we took her on. A lot of these covers we actually had sort of like, really good deals on. You know what I mean? We didn't even have, Paul Green this time around. We didn't have a Keith Garvey. We were working with other talent. So it was like Justin Hunt, it was Luigi Terrell, it was Matt Weldon. It was God, who am I forgetting? CB Zane, you know what I mean? Like he said, because I had CB Zane draw for Nyobi before, but it was a variant cover of our Angel Girl, Ariel. He said, I really want to draw Nyobi someday. And I said, well, how about Nyobi and Might? And we'll do an homage, And he was all in for that. And man, that book came out so nice. The way that looks in print. Oh my God. But yeah, I mean, so it just sort of morphed into 11. Like when I probably, initially wanted maybe 6 or 7 of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because one of the things that I think people don't understand if you never run a Kickstarter, and the only reason why I know this is because I've interviewed a lot of people, is that every time you add on another cover, that adds an additional cost onto printing because you're not now printing more books, but it changes the way the book is
Well,
printed.
not only does it add, for more printing, but these guys don't work for free. So every time you agree to a new cover, you're paying that artist's cover rate, right? Some, and rates vary. I paid, as little as nothing for a cover, all the way up to $1,000 and everywhere else in between. It all depends on who you're hiring and that sort of thing. So you got to take that into account. But I mean, again, a lot of people that we were working with weren't exactly, charging exuberant amounts of money. A lot of people were very fair with their rates, and it was very easy to add on a bunch of covers. Then we had a couple sort of heavy hitters, and they all did, pretty good, man. I got to say, like with the new campaign coming up, I want to do 7 covers, and we're already past that. It's probably going to be another 11 cover campaign, just for the exact same reasons, we'll get into that a little later, but that's why it was done. It was done because it was easy to do. We had the money, and I want to do something big for the origin story. You know what I mean? Like that was the campaign. So I'm going all out. Not only did we do 11 covers, we did a blank variant. You know what I mean? And we did 5 of the covers. We also did foil editions of them, right? So we had 5 foil covers. So we had the Matt Weldon foil cover, the Luigi cover, Chris Enoch, Justin Hunt's, and God, what was the there was a 5th one, RB White. was the other one. All 5 of those, there's foil editions, and all those look sweet too. So, and then we did a reprint of Nyobi #1 as a third printing. I'll show you that here in a second. You can see what old school Nyobi looked like. But we did that too, and that was an add-on. Add-ons are fucking, Andrew, I'm gonna steal a line from you again. Add-ons are, say it with me, phenomenal. That's right, phenomenal.
I don't disagree, in which add-ons are something that definitely helped to get me over the line on my Kickstarter, and so very, very helpful. And obviously, I'm not playing it in the realm of comics, but you'd be surprised what people add on, what people want, what people need. A bunch of people add on.
Tell me what you want, what you really, really want.
Yeah, exactly. We all
I'll
know
tell you what I want, what I really, really want.
But the reason why I'm bringing all this up, and I didn't show the other 3 covers yet, is that obviously
you know how many covers there are, son?
No, there are 3 that I didn't show purposely. This is all purposely instilled here.
All part of the master plan.
Exactly.
All right.
So one of the things that's going on with you that's very important, you mentioned it a bunch of times, is that you're now an Antarctic Press. And so a lot of people know that, but I think a lot of people are now seeing Nyobi for the first time because unfortunately with comics, some people won't back a Kickstarter. And I used to be in that camp where I had a very bad experience and I didn't back a Kickstarter for 3 years because I had such a bad experience that it took me a long time to come back. And there are people who will only back Kickstarters. And so what is that like for you that you're now in comic shops? Because obviously you got into exciting comics, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And then now Nyobi's coming into his own book and Origins is being thrown out there. So what is that like for you that you're now hitting both markets?
It's really surreal, to be honest with you, to be working with Antarctic Press, because they've been around for 35 years. They're a small publisher, but they've had longevity in the game. Here, I'm just going to turn off my camera for a second because I want to go grab something. Something I actually just picked up today. I'll show you my loot today, Andrew. You know what I mean? But I do have to go get it. But I'll answer the question though. It's great. You're with the company of whose books you read when you were a teenager. And I actually went and picked up one of those books today. I'm going to show it to you. But it's also, very cool just to be in the previews book. I brought my previews issue to my D&D game today and showed the boys. They were all like fucking blown away. You know what I mean? Like, that's fucking wicked, because you can be an independent comic book creator and do just well with never being in shops right now. That's sort of like the cool thing about crowdfunding is that, you're selling directly to the customer and you never have to have a book on the shelf in a store and you can be successful, very successful, right? But I think it's an added bonus if you can get them in the shop just to have that sort of extra set of eyes, because there's lots of people, Andrew, and I know to guys who crowdfund all the time, this sounds like, common sense, but there's lots of people who don't know what a Kickstarter is or how it works. And there's lots of people who are just sort of intimidated by it, or they hear some bad things like late books and that sort of stuff. And they just sort of rather just get their books at the comic shop. The other thing too is price, right? So like if I want as many people reading Nyobi as possible, price matters in that. And I can't, sell my book on Kickstarter for $5. I just can't, right? We'll never make a dime if we do that. We'll lose money. However, after the book is done and it goes to Antarctic Press, they can reprint that book and sell it on the shelf for $5, right? I'll give you an example. I've stopped backing Lady Death Kickstarters and I backed the first 10 or 11 of them. And the reason why I stopped backing was because it was getting expensive, right? It was just starting, it ended up becoming $50 just to sort of like, after taxes, after shipping, after the sort of US to Canadian conversion rate, it ended up being $48, close to $50. I'm like, this is just getting too expensive, because I know if I wait 2 or 3 months, I'm going to be able to get that same story for $4.99 at my comic shop. Now, is it going to be in prestige format? No. Am I going to be able to pick the hot fucking sexy variant I want? No, I'm going to get whatever's on the shelf, but I am going to get the story and I'm going to be able to read it for $5 and I don't have to pay for shipping, right? Well, that same option now is going to be available for people that want to read Nyobi and they don't want to pay $20 for a book and $10 for shipping, you know, and they don't want to wait 3 or 4 months for it. They just want to be able to go to the shop, drop their $5 and pick up the book. And we're going to give that option to them.
And also, I think it goes to
And
the
now
idea
just give me a
that,
second, Andrew. You just talk for a minute. I'll be right back.
yeah, so obviously it's in previews, everybody. So pick that up, and I'm sure Larry's going to tell you what those preview codes are. You can get Nyobi Origins. You can pre-order pretty much till February 18th on that front. Also, you can go buy my T-shirt, everybody, on Redbubble, because I might as well plug myself here. You can go pick that shirt up. It's on Redbubble. It's in the description up above. And I am a huge Gundam fan. And if enough people order this shirt, and I made some money with it so far, but I'm going to keep doing shirts like that all the time. So obviously that's something very cool in that regard. So obviously that's just my plug right now until my guest comes back and talk more about Nyobi here. But in the meanwhile, if you haven't already seen it, last week I interviewed Ben Dunn. I also had Steph Wilson on, and I had Pat Shand on, and it's coming up this Tuesday, and I have a few more people coming up. So obviously, that's really cool stuff going on, and yeah, so super excited. And I don't know, obviously I got Corey Hardyman's in here, the Electric Crayon Phil's in here, Pete, you're sexy as fuck, just throwing that out there. Max DeVille's in here as well. I don't know who Sam Quinnan is, but luckily I don't know who I'm a big.
Yeah, Sam Quinton, he's just a young upstart, you know what I mean? Young upstart guy. He's only got 15 successful campaigns behind his belt,
Yeah, no, only 15. If he had 16, he'd be golden.
Successfully funded, by the way, Reign of Ages. Talk about black and white. And, again, Sam, and Nick had to go black and white just for expense reasons, right? And it worked for them. I've always told them, I think, I still would like to see it in color, but that's a good example of black and white and getting your foot in the door, because we did the same thing. You know what I mean? I can never knock someone for going black and white because I know why they did it, because I had to do it too. I talked about reprinting Nyobi issue 1, the very first Nyobi. This is the 3rd printing, done by the same cover artist who did the first cover for us. He's just a local guy in my town. You know what I mean? The first Nyobi was put together by 3 locals who had absolutely zero experience in making comic books. Zero. Okay. But he did this cover because he's an artist. And then we had another guy named David Coates draw the interior. And I'm telling you, man, dude, we were black and white. You know what I mean? It was black and white with gray tones. Now, not like I'm trying to put that on the camera, but this is the very first Nyobi, man, quite different, than what we do now. In fact, Nyobi's not even in this a lot. It's more about the sort of character named Lucas, and Nyobi's sort of in his story. But this was the first Nyobi, man, right here. And this was 36 pages as well. This was sort of like the big 2-page money shot that's in the book. Yeah. Now imagine this though, if this was in color, right?
Yeah, no. You can't knock people for black and white because people have to get into the game, and obviously you all start somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm. And then I talked about the 2-page bio in the back of the book. I'm going to show that to you very quickly if I can find it.
So I'm just going to let everybody know, if you're listening to this in audio, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you can't.
Yeah, no, but we did a 2-page bio, which you can see here. Whoever's listening to audio, obviously you can't see it, but it has like all her stats, like her age, her height, her weight, nationality, all that sort of stuff. And then we have like a whole sort of breakdown of her powers and a breakdown of her basic history. And that basic history, was what, fed the inspiration of the actual Nyobi Origins comic book. And this is the CB Zane cover that we talked about with Mighty Might. It just looks so much better, in print. You know what I mean? No, Andrew, you got to hold in your hand. So you want these these beautiful ladies, you know, close to you, brother. Right?
I'll just plead guilty, and then we'll
Sure,
just move
sure.
on.
By the way, we have Corey Hardiman in the chat of Sister Mercy fame.
I mentioned him, yeah. Corey's great. And Corey, you need to fill out that form whenever at your earliest convenience. Fill out my form, Corey, please.
Fill out the form, Corey. God, what's wrong with you, man?
but getting back to Antarctic Press, because
Sure.
obviously this is all coming out in April, these books, and they're obviously Origins is done, and there's 3 covers, and even just going further off of what we were sort of talking about before, you know, what is that like, knowing that the Justin Hunt cover is going to be in there, which is this one. Obviously, Courtney Rose Damon's cover is going to be in there, and Matthew, I think it's Weldon. I want to say if I got that right.
Call him Whedon.
Is it Whedon or is it Weldon? I'm not too sure.
It's Weldon, but I like it when you call him like Josh Whedon.
Oh, okay.
Like I laugh so hard. Matt Whedon. That's awesome.
Hey! I get names mixed up sometimes.
It's all right, bro. I'm just busting your balls, man. So I worked with the Antarctic Press to sort of select the right covers, right? So that was the discussion that was had in Facebook, where I said, you know, which cover do you want to use? You know, you're basically open to any of them. And they sort of flipped through it, and they wanted to do the Justin Hunt cover because that was the cover I shown off quite a bit, and that's the one people sort of associated Origins with. It's the one I used as the Kickstarter banner. You know, it's what I used as my Facebook, my profile. You know what I mean? So that was sort of like almost like to them the cover A. You know, and then we got into discussions about a variant cover. You know, I didn't even know if we were going to do a variant cover, but they want to do a variant cover. And they wanted to do Courtney Rose for a couple of reasons. One, they thought it was important to have a female creator being represented. But plus 2, they just really liked the sexy cover. You know what I mean? And but they were torn because they wanted to do either this cover as the variant or they want to do Matt Whedon. Say that with me. Matt Whedon.
Whedon.
No, Matthew Weldon, sir. But they, I know Andrew can't hold it together, folks. You can't. You should see him laughing and smiling right now. But they want to do one or the other, right? And then what they decided to do was that then they decided they couldn't decide which one because they wanted Matt Weldon because Matt Weldon does another AP book called Punchline. And so to have an AP creator on a variant cover is probably a good idea, you know, considering we're in the same wheelhouse, right?
Yeah.
But they also really wanted that sort of female representation. You know what I mean? Let's say this is a cover done by a female, you know, that was important to them. So what they decided to do was make the Matt Weldon cover for the first time ever, by the way, for Antarctic Press is an incentive cover where if your shop orders 20 copies of, of either cover, then they'll get one cover of the Matt Weldon, right? So I don't know how well that's going to work out for them because I don't know too many shops that, you know, to be honest with you, order one copy of any, 20 copies of anything, unless if it's like fucking Batman or Superman or something, you know?
The only shops that are going to do that are shops like Midtown, for instance, or TFW, or, Forbidden, whatever that store is, or a big comic shop that might have 2 or 3 stores, like Third Eye might do it, for instance, because they have enough customers that it makes sense, and that's just business, it's kind of like if, maybe an eBay store would do it, because if you have, you're servicing 5,000 customers, you can afford, and it's likely that you're going to order 20 copies of a book. And given the fact that the Kickstarter did really well, naturally people are going to want to pick it up. I obviously picked up both copies of Justin Hunt and Courtney's book because, A, I want to support you, and I also want both of those books. God forbid this thing becomes a massive hit. Well, I have the first issues.
Well, if you ever get them graded, make sure you put in the notes: first appearance of Sybil, first appearance of Akio, first appearance of Kidman Drake. I'm just dropping names that no one's heard yet, but there's 3 first appearances in that book. So it's a key issue, for Antarctic Press.
And so to even go further into all of this stuff with these covers, obviously it is very important, I think, when people see a really eye-catching cover, and this cover sort of makes you stop. And so does this one in a lot of ways. And this one does as well, but these are going to be the ones that I think people are going to see the most on a comic shelf. And so what was that like going through your head? Because while you're not a cover artist, you did book these covers, and you also want your book to sell off the shelf, because when you start going into previews and you start going to comic shops, you want the shop to make money with your comic. You also want people to pick it up and read it who normally wouldn't see it. Because I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've gone into a comic shop not knowing anything about a comic character, and I was like, man, that cover looks cool, what's this book about? And it's very important sometimes where I'm just eye browsing and I'm impulse buying in a comic shop. And then I
Well, a
find a
lot of
certain,
comic books are just that, though, right? They're impulse buys, and when you walk by the shelf, it's obviously the very first thing you're going to see is the cover. And if the cover is good enough to catch your eye, then hopefully it's good enough that you're going to pick it up. You know what I mean? And then hopefully you like what's on the inside. I bought lots of books simply on the cover, and then enjoyed the story afterwards. You know what I mean? I bought Black Cat Mary Jane, the J. Scott Campbell one shot that just came out like last week. And I liked the book. I don't read a lot of Marvel books lately, but I like that one. That one was a fun sort of one shot, one tale sort of story. Um, it wasn't, nothing thrilling. It wasn't like, the best read of my life, but I certainly read worse Marvel books lately, so it was a nice little change of pace to have a little fun with Mary Jane and Black Cat. But that's just one example. I was going to show you, like, this book here is really good. I was buying this just because it's Tony Daniels doing the covers and the interior art, and I loved him in the 10th. But Noctera is probably the only Image book I get, and it's a really good book. In fact, it's going to become a series. Surprise, surprise. You know what I mean? I also, what else did I pick? The only other Marvel book I get, I talk about Marvel, is X-Men Legends. That's a good one. That's new X-Men stories, but told back, before they were living on the island and stuff. Andrew, you're gonna appreciate this one. Boom. The nice.
yeah, no, it's I'm weird. Like, I don't know much about Red Sonja.
Well, think Conan but female with a chainmail bikini. You kind of got the idea.
I'm
That's
really
a really simplified sort of take on her, but I mean that's what she is. She's a female barbarian running around the same world from Conan. And
don't get me wrong. I appreciate the little stuff I know about Red Sonja, and I respect the book. I just don't know. I never got into it. It's like weird. Like, I've gotten into Evil Ernie and all that stuff, and like even Lady Death, I never got into. Like, because partially the problem with Lady Death is what you said, is that it's super expensive.
well, here's the thing though. This is the store bought version. I picked this up at the local comic shop today for, guess what, $4.99, right? So I don't need to back the Kickstarter because I know the book's going to be in the shop, right? Now, again, I don't get to pick out the fancy covers. It's not going to be signed. It's not going to be prestige format. But if all I want to do is actually read it and still have a nice cover, I mean, that's a beautiful cover. Don't get me wrong. You know what I mean? Then I can go buy it for $4.99, which is the same sort of thing that we're going to do now for Nyobi customers who want to go get it for $4.99.
And I also think it's very important because obviously everybody's at different price range. Also, it's the idea that it's sort of taking a second bite at the apple, or a third bite, because I think you've done a Kickstarter, then you also sometimes go to Indiegogo, and then this is now a third bite at the apple because, I don't know about you or anybody else who's watching, Sam, obviously Corey's watching, Phil's watching. I think Pete is still watching. Max might be watching.
I brought the whole crew with me. I told you, brother.
But one of the things is that, and I'm sure you've been there, where sometimes you just don't have money when a Kickstarter drops. And it's the idea that now if it's in shops or if it's in previews, you might have money when that thing drops. Because I've been there, and I think a lot of people have been. And
well,
so
there's quite a difference for buying a book for $4.99 and then maybe spending $30-40 on a Kickstarter. You know what I mean?
That too. And also there are trust issues on Kickstarter.
Here's the thing. Absolute Comics does the book called White Widow, and they took a lot of shit for bad customer service on Kickstarter. And and making people wait in an atrocious amount of time for books, but they're also in Diamond Magazine. So I just get my White Widow when they show up on the shelf, right? I get my Lady Death now when it shows up on the shelf, Common America is another book I'm just going to wait for when it shows up on the shelf from Antarctic Press. There's several Kickstarter books now or crowdfunded books that are just being published, whether it be on their own like Coffin or Absolute, or through publishers like Antarctic Press, which I don't have a problem waiting and buying the books for $4.99. If that's an option for me, that's a good option to have, and that's sort of what I do. I mean, here's the back issue pick of the week. This is an old Antarctic Press book from 1994. This just shows the legacy of Antarctic Press, and I get to say I'm on the same label as this. This is a Masamune Shiro's. Is that his last name? No, Sahara's Kazumushi. I can't even say it, Andrew. But this is a cool, fun American. Well, just like a manga-esque sort of book, but before. Manga was really a big popular thing, you know what I mean, around here. Like manga's just chewing it up right now. But it was stuff like this that, when I was 14, 15, 16, I sort of caught my eye, like this and Ninja High School, books like that, Shuriken from Eternity Comics. And, it's just some fun stuff. I mean, let's see, nice little artwork like that. You know what I mean? And so I'm going to be tracking down some of these old Antarctic Press books just to have in my collection now that I'm sort of part of the legacy that is, Antarctic Press. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's very, very cool. And it's also, one of the things is that it adds credibility to you in a lot of ways as well. And I think what's happening now in comics, and obviously I think Kickstarter lends this to it as well, is that when you start fulfilling and you actually deliver your books, you actually fund a lot of money in Kickstarter, you deliver a good product, and then you're in comic shops, you start getting credibility in a lot of different ways. And so it's very important, I think, because in comics, and feel free to challenge me on this, but this is what I think, your name is really what matters in a lot of ways. Is do you deliver on time? Do you write a good story? Are you, being
well, I'll tell you the truth. My name means shit, right? The name that means something is Nyobi. No one cares about Larry Higgins.
But I think where I'm going with this, and I'm going to challenge a little bit, is the fact that you deliver Nyobi on time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I back a Nyobi book, you might be late by 2 weeks, which is nothing, which means you're not late at all.
I'm not late. Yeah, I still got all month to deliver.
And so, because I have had horrible experiences on Kickstarter, and I've had bad experiences, and there are certain people in comics who say they're going to release a book, and then DC or Marvel has to postpone that release. I mean, Doomsday Clock is a great example of that, and it definitely tests the credibility. And so I think that's something that, I view Nyobi as always being on time, and I think that's something that matters tremendously in comics right now. And even when it's coming into Antarctic Press, and I know with your next one, you're not going to have a book that comes out in Antarctic Press for a little bit because the whole story has to be done first so that they deliver it as well. And that also helps with credibility.
Sure. Yeah, they don't want to take on a book that's sort of halfway done or a series that's kind of halfway done because, they spend a lot of money in the advertisement and promoting of said book. And what happens if that creative team falls apart and that book doesn't get done? Then they put money into soliciting your book and there's no book. You know what I mean? And they've been burned a few times that way. So, I mean, Nyobi Origins is with the Antarctic Press, but it's probably going to be a good year and a half before you see another book with them because we got to finish our 4-part miniseries, which is going to take a while. You know what I mean?
And you got a bunch of stuff going on with that. And so obviously you're gearing up for that. You've been teasing a bunch of covers. I think there's the Justin Hunt cover that I'm looking at. That's the sleeper, guys. I'm telling you right now, that is the sleeper book.
You really think?
I don't really care.
I can show you the sleeper book, but I'll let you go on for a minute.
No. I think that's the sleeper book, and I think that's the money shot right there. But this is one of those things that's not, and there's a colored version of this, and there's a really cool video that you put up, and then there's this also.
That I'm waiting for. That right there could be colored at any point. Dan O'Vera has that in his possession right now, and that, it could be tonight, it could be tomorrow, but we should see the color version of that really soon. And that, of course, is done by Juan Antonio, who again is doing the interior artwork for the book. So these are all for Nyobi Outbreak, which is basically my play on a virus outbreak in Nyobi's world. And it was initially going to be a 3-part series. It's now going to be a 4-part series because I started plotting it out, and it's just like, I can't fit this in 3 books.
And so what is that like to make that decision? Because obviously you don't put filler in your books.
Well, here's the thing. When we started Nyobi, it was meant to be an ongoing series, right? But we're only releasing a book once a year. You know what I mean? So how can you really do an ongoing series when you're doing a book a year? No one cares. You know what I mean? So we would either have to, speed up production to get out a book, every couple of months, or it's sort of stupid to do an ongoing series because they're not coming out fast enough, right? Because people in the comic book world are used to books every month. You know what I mean? If you're going to do an ongoing series. So I made a decision that Nyobi will no longer ever be an ongoing series, ever. What it's going to be is a series of one-shots and mini-series, kind of like the way they do Danger Girl now. Like they had Danger Girl Mayday, which was like a 4-part mini-series. You know what I mean?
It's kind of the way they're doing Zenoscope now as well, where they're doing it 1 or 2 parts.
Right. Well, Bell is a good example of that. If you read Bell from Zenoscope,
yep,
all the Bell stuff is one-shots, right? Once in a while, they'll do like a 2-part thing or a 3-part thing. That's what Nyobi's going to be. So each miniseries or one shot is going to be a self-contained story, but there will be little threads in there that will connect them all together eventually. You know what I mean? But you wouldn't need to read Birthright to enjoy Origins, and you won't need to read Outbreak to enjoy Birthright. They're all sort of their separate things. But there are going to be characters who are going to intermix and mingle and show up, and it's all canon. What's not canon is the black and white stuff. To me, canon starts when we first went to color. The black and white stuff was sort of like us experimenting with just making a comic book, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I also think that, obviously color was just a good starting point because everybody's just, there's sort of a clear differentiating factor with it. And so obviously there's a lot of stuff coming out, and you got a bunch of covers, and you already said there's going to be like 11 for the first Nyobi Outbreak that's going to be out there, and you're hopefully you're never ever going to have 100 covers.
Well, no, we won't ever have 100 covers. Like I think the covers that we have right now, is enough. I'm going to show you some stuff, I guess. Let's hold on.
Yeah, what do you got?
Well, I got the goods, brother. I mean,
so I'm gonna add it right in there.
So there's the colored version of one of the covers you just shown. That was colored by Dan O'Vera. That is done by Eduardo Garcia. And if you're a Zenoscope fan, Andrew, you should know that name because he's drawn a lot of the books you probably read.
Oh yeah, and I know who he is.
So it was cool to get him on board. He might even do some pages for us down the road. We're thinking about doing a holiday one-shot, and I'll probably get him to draw it because Juan will be busy doing Outbreak. So that might be something that will happen. That's the Justin Hunt cover, which you say is going to be the runaway hit, right?
Yep, I'm calling it. I could be wrong, but I think that's the one.
That's the one? Okay. I think this is the one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's sexy, but yeah, I don't know. This is a tough one.
And I'll tell you why. Because just the social media response on this was, Andrew, phenomenal. Okay, this had over 130 likes in 24 hours on Facebook. People love this one, dude. And this is probably one we're going to make into a foil.
See, this reminds me of very much like the first Miss Meow by Jamie Tyndall. Like that's what that reminds me of.
Now, this is you're not going to bring home to the wife or show around at work. You know what I mean?
But this is surprised though.
But this is a beautiful cover. I don't even think I'm going to put the logo on it. You know, I'm going to keep this one a virgin cover. I'm going to make this one a foil cover. This is going to be the cover you're going to want to send to CGC to get graded and look nice in your collection.
Maybe.
But that's not all. That's just a sketch of some stuff that we're doing, by the way. But there's the Courtney Rose Dameron cover that Dan O'Vera just like made the jacket really shine in this, you know. It was a nice close-up shot. Then, of course, we got... That's a new character that's going to appear in Outbreak, by the way. Speaking of first appearances and stuff. Same with her. Same with her. You know what I mean? I'm building a universe, Andrew.
Well, let's talk about that, because this is something that a lot of companies are now doing, where things are becoming very much a universe-centric position.
Sure.
Where, and I know you said that you view Nyobi as its own contained universe and not part of anything else. I don't know if you're interested in doing something down the road outside of Nyobi, but what is that like to build this universe and actually create, you know, something where you obviously have a lot of characters, and I don't know if you're ever going to have, you know, Sybil or other characters having, you know, like a 3-part story that's in the Nyobi world, but isn't having that.
Well, I've done it before. I've done an Avani one shot. So it's not like I'm opposed to, you know, here, like I'll show you. This is Avani right here. She was the villain from Nyobi #2. This is like the old black and white Avani one shot that we did on the small screen. You guys can't see it, but it's a beautiful picture of Avani coming out of a pool. Done by RB White, by the way.
Yeah, people could see that more.
Yeah. So we've done it before with other characters, right? So if I do it, like let's say I do a Sybil comic, it probably wouldn't be a miniseries. I do it as a one shot first, right? And if people like that and it did well, then we could expand on it, you know? So that stuff could always be in the works. But really, these characters are meant to exist in the Nyobi universe, to interact with Nyobi, whether they are friend or foe or something in between. You know, I want you to think Nyobi as like, what if Zenescope did X-Men? You know, it's kind of what we do.
Yeah, and I think it's very important in a lot of ways, because when I read a comic, my objective, and I am not all that familiar with Nyobi, so Origins is actually my first Nyobi book.
Beautiful. Great way to start.
And so, you know, I don't know everything about Nyobi, and I'm very honest with that. But I was like, hey, you know, this book looks cool, and it seems fun, and it's going to be a cool read, and I'm super stoked for it. And it's also really good cover art and things of that nature. It very much is bad girl art. It's very similar to Cousin of Zenescope, is how I call it. And so I'm very excited to read it, though. And I actually do want to read Birthright, and I want to read the other stuff too. And I'm looking forward to Outbreak and everything else. And possibly I would like to get my hands on some of that black and white stuff just to see what it is, because, well, I'm one of those guys that I want to read everything. I'm a completionist.
Well, that's why we did the third printing of Nyobi #1, because everyone wants the very first one, even though like it doesn't explain her origin at all. They just want the very first one, right? And we haven't had first printings of that #1 for years. They're gone. There may be like 300 of them out there. There's even less of the second printing, because we did it on Indiegogo as a second print. And those are gone. So it's now third printing of that first issue. But I'm just going to leave it at third printing. Whenever someone wants one now, we'll just go to the third print. You know what I mean?
It makes sense, because after a while, you know, it doesn't make sense unless you have a book like Star Wars that Marvel did like 15 printings for.
Right. Well, the reason why we just can't reprint the second printing was because that was an Indiegogo exclusive cover, right? And that's all we did.
Yeah, and you need to keep, you know, if you're printing 150 a book, you have to keep it at that, because that's just disingenuous. Where if I found out that a bunch of books were printed beyond that 150, I'd be pissed off as a fan. And yeah. I think most people understand that.
And you have, you know, every right to be. There's Paul Green Birthright #2 cover that was the highest selling cover we've ever had, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I really should pick up and find that book, because it's a good book to have.
Well, I happen to know a guy, Andrew, that's got a couple of copies.
Yeah,
he could probably give you a deal on it. You know,
you know a guy, and I know a guy who could help us, right?
Yeah, we we can make a couple of phone calls and make an arrangement, brother. We can save you some money. You don't have to buy it on eBay for $150 because that's what they were going for.
Let's talk about that too, because
We're going to talk about everything, brother.
this is so bad. This is so bad.
We're just having a conversation, dude. I mean, we're friends, man. It's all good.
What is that like, knowing that you booked a cover that really does go for good money?
Well, I mean, it's not because of Nyobi or because of me. It's because of Paul Green. Like, let's call it, a spade here. You know what I mean? He has a huge fan following. That's very very loyal to him. And the thing is that when he does these small press books, those fans know that run on, say, Nyobi is going to be less than 1,000 copies, and they're going to be really hard to track down. And so the most rabid of Paul Green fans are going to look for his rarest work, right? Because that's sort of like a status symbol. It's like, look at this Paul Green cover that you don't have, And I think that's why it was going for 150 on the E of the Bay,
I mean, I can tell you that I've sold Paul Green books, and I sold the 200 print run, and that book went for 120 out of my collection, and I paid like $50 for it. So they go for good money. And then even the stuff that has less, like I've had Paul Green books that were 75 print runs that went for $175.
Yeah.
And so the two of them, I had two. One was a 125 print run, the other was 170. Was a 75 print run, and I made like $300, and it was a deal with like 3 Zenescope statues.
Well, just so people know I'm not full of shit when I say this, I'll pop up my screen here for a second.
I mean, this is my jam.
I mean, this is even what it was listed for. This is what it sold for, right? So someone on May the 8th sold this for 182.24 Canadian, which is 150 US. From some top-rated seller, which isn't me. You know what I mean?
So just to make other people know that I'm not full of shit. I buy and sell comics, and I do consult on this, and people pay me money to learn how to do this and have advice and other things. And people have hit me up and have paid me to ask me questions about how to sell collections and a variety of other things. And so Paul Green, and there's a variety of other artists that do fetch a fuck ton of money for their books, and people don't negotiate with eBay sellers on certain books. Paul Green is one of those people that there really aren't negotiations that happen, because it's either you buy the book or you don't. And people who are real fans of Paul Green in particular understand that. And so if I put a Paul Green book up for $100, there's no negotiating, and anybody who's a true fan who wants that book is going to just buy it straight up. And they're like, hey, thank you for being reasonable. And I've gotten a bunch of those emails when I have sold Paul Green books. So, and the reason why I'm giving you credit though on this is that you had the whereabouts and the understanding to book Paul Green as a cover artist. And that's a real skill, is understanding who to book and who not to.
Well, let's put it this way. I was a fan of his work through another creator by the name of Molly Schofield, who did a book called, was it Mutant Chasers X, I think it was. And then she had another sort of bounty hunter book, and Paul Green was doing the covers for those and the interior art. And he just had such the, that J. Scott Campbell vibe is the only way I can describe it, right? That sort of Disney, graceful, sexy, playful vibe. And I, automatic, and plus I had covers from Zenescope, right? So I was aware of who he was. And I had no idea if he'd be even willing to work on Nyobi. So when I approached him first, it wasn't even for a cover. It was for a personal piece of art, Andrew. That's how I, started to befriend Paul Green. Was I actually hit him up for a personal commission twice before I even asked him to do a cover, right? And man, we should have made that first piece a cover, dude. I'm gonna show it to you. If you're a Paul Green fan, you're gonna love this. Let me just see where it's at. But hiring him was, didn't think twice about it. The thing is that he's the most expensive of all our cover artists. So if you're going to go after Paul Green, you got to understand that you're paying a premium, but it's probably going to pay off for you in dividends. You know what I mean? If you can afford them, you should get them. But he only uses really Ulam moss to color his stuff, and she comes with a tag too. But they're worth it. Go ahead and share my screen, brother. I'll show you the personal piece he did for me. What do you think of that? That's on my wall right now, right above the computer.
No, it's a nice piece, and it's definitely a Paul Green for sure.
Right? That's not a cover. That's an original piece of art. Now, Andrew, I could probably sell that for quite a bit on my next Kickstarter. I'm never going to, but I mean, like, if you're a Nyobi collector or a Paul Green collector or both, that's the fucking hot ticket, fucking original piece of art right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Commissions are a hot piece of art. I have a few commissions from one of my favorite artists, which is Elias Chazudis. Is my favorite art, and I have an
I'll show you the second one he did. This one he just sort of gave to me for free. This was just sort of like a sketch. You know what I mean?
I'm pulling it up right now.
So this was just sort of like a loose sketch. That too is on my wall. And then after he did a couple of these, then I asked him, I said, look, dude, I said, this is actually a comic book, and how would you like to do a cover? And he was in. So the rest is sort of history.
Yeah, because this is one of those things that I think people don't understand. And,
you know who Jamie Tyndall is?
Yeah, of course I know who Jamie Tyndall is. He was on my show a while back.
Take a look at
Dolan
this.
was on my show.
That's done by Jamie Tyndall. This was on the Nyobi #3 back in 2017 when I met him at the Calgary Fan Expo, and I had a table there, and I had these blank variants just for the expo. And Jamie Tyndall was there, and I got him to draw some Nyobi, that brother. That's in my personal collection.
Yeah, we all have personal books, and those are the best. I love my personal books.
Well, I tell you, I got a lot of stuff like this. And, by meeting these artists and meeting them at conventions or hitting them up for personal pieces, helps sort of like open the door for them, to work with you in the future, because you've established sort of like this relationship with them. They've done a couple of drawings for you, so, it kind of helps open doors. Like, check this one out by Paul. Paul was selling this on his site. This was like, I didn't even know he had done this one. And Paul Green likes to throw up original art once in a while for sale, right? So this is a Nyobi sketch that he was selling for $100 USD, which is a hell of a buy. Whoever got this got really lucky,
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's just an eye for finding it. But you said something very interesting. I think it's also very important, because I saw something, and I don't know how much time you spend in a Facebook group, but somebody was saying, hey, how did you go sort of book a cover artist and have a budget? And I'm obviously paraphrasing it. I don't remember the person's name, but and they were saying I won't spend real good money for cover artists for my book. And you mentioned that, hey, you were hitting up artists for personal pieces and commissions. And obviously, I think my path, if I ever do a comic, and that's a big if, obviously I interview a lot of these people. Mm-hmm. And once you start just asking people and making connections and things like that, it's a very good skill, because all of a sudden, if I want to hit up Keith Garvey, I've had Keith Garvey on my show. I've had Sun Kumanaki on my show. And a lot of it is just asking people and also just approaching people. And if you get a commission from somebody, that opens up a path, and you're not going to get them to work for you for free, but you're going to have access to them. And it's very important, I think, because I think you brought up something, why you get people who work on Nyobi and how doors get open. And I think it's a real skill that a lot of people don't understand.
Well, that was in the early days when we were still black and white. All that original art that I showed you was all in our black and white days when we were doing like $2,000, $3,000 Kickstarters. It's a different ball game now, in the sense of like, we've established ourselves now to a certain point, and people are aware of who we are. It's gotten to the point where I don't have to ask an artist to come. Sometimes they're asking me, which is weird. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I saw your Nyobi thing, and if you ever need a cover artist, just hit me up. I get that a lot, man. Sometimes it's from people I never heard of. Sometimes it's from people I'm like, I can't believe they just fucking messaged me, It's amazing. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, see, I have to ask everybody for an interview, but I get a lot more yeses than I did 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Where but it's also different when you're asking people for an interview versus saying, anything like that. And also, I get a lot more responses because I think I'm taking more serious now, and that's a really really rewarding feeling when you're taking more serious. Except for my troll, which at the,
Listen, we all got one of those, brother. You know.
hey, I'm trying to get him on your show with me,
All
and
right.
we'll settle it like Rumble in the Jungle, guys.
Sure,
It'll be
I'll
fun.
host that. Yeah, man.
It'll be civil. Hopefully we're not going to all kill him in the first 5 minutes. After the first 5 minutes, it's game on.
Well, we'll have
It's a
to
new
talk off
game.
here. I got to find out who this troll is now. You know what I mean?
You know who my troll is?
Do I? All right.
I mean, it's Flip.
Oh, Flip. Flip's not even a troll, dude. Like Flip is an afterthought of like 3 years ago of. Oh, it's not about Flip though. Corey's having a good night. Good night, Sister Mercy. Have a good one. Sam Quinton wants to know, where is his Bitcoin?
Yeah. I don't know where it's going.
They also want to know why you're not wearing a blue shirt tonight. Actually, they didn't ask.
And this show is clearly going downhill, and clearly, this show's going
Listen,
down.
I'll answer any question seriously if you got them, brother. Anything you want to know.
But I do want to back out of Nyobi, and I do want to talk about Kickstarter because
Sure.
one of the things that you've done, and I actually respect you for it, is because you're a good model for why you should book variant covers, why you should pick up certain artists, and why you should pick up heavy hitting artists, as well as
if you can afford it. I mean, we had to build up to that, right? You know, a lot of people can't start out of the gate doing that unless they got like a lot of capital behind them. You have to work your way towards that.
I agree on that. But I think you sort of have proven a model that works, where obviously people love variants, people want certain artists, and it's also that you find the mixture, I think. Where
I didn't start that model though. I mean, thank you for giving me credit for that, but that's not me at all. That is me sort of following things that Tom Hutchinson has done and Brian Polito. Like, if I'm going to tell you the truth, I look at their Kickstarters and I go, okay, what can I learn from these? I may not be able to duplicate everything they do, but what at least can I take away from what they're doing and apply it somehow to myself? So, there's what I call the Kickstarter meta when you're doing bad girl books, right? I don't think the meta works unless if it is a bad girl book. But I mean, there is, having the variant covers and having some, sexy tchotchkes and having not the proper names, but some of the right names, who are already known for bad girl comics, right? There's just a way that you sort of lay out your Kickstarter and having some nice graphics and have everything look smooth and pro, and be able to market that bad girl comic book with some very stunning and sexy imagery that really captures the eye. There's a whole sort of method to the madness.
I also think associations matter. So things like Top Out in the '90s and having that vibe, the Zenoscope stuff, because I think Zenoscope is one of the most prolific companies out there with bad girl art, and they built an entire company back in 2005 on that, and it's still that. And I think in a lot of ways, having those associations, when you have Keith Garvey, who's killing it in Zenoscope, and hopefully at some point you're going to reach out to Sun Kumanaki, is a really good name whenever you need to bring in a new cover artist, because she's killing it right now. And then there's a bunch of other people. Obviously, Chris Inhot has done some Zenoscope work. And so all of a sudden, all that stuff really does help to give you credibility in that space as well. So, yeah. And I think though that, you're just one of the examples that has done that. Obviously, Tom has done that. I don't know Brian Polito's Kickstarters as well as I should. So I don't want to speak on something I don't know.
He's the one that sets the standard for everyone. Period. End of story. Ethan Van Sciver is the king of comics on Indiegogo. Then Brian Polito is the king of comics on Kickstarter. That's just how it is. So if you want to learn from the best, that's the best.
Yeah, no. I don't disagree, but again, I'm not as familiar with Brian Pulido's
What
stuff.
I'm saying is you need to start going to have a look.
Fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. But my point is that I can't speak on something I don't know at the moment.
Right,
So
right. But now I'm going to give you homework to do. You start looking
yeah,
at his Kickstarters.
but I do think that you have really helped a lot of people, and obviously you're also very much outspoken about it, and obviously you just went through a debate, and I think that you really have shown in a lot of ways that the Kickstarter model works in a lot of ways, and I think that
The debate. You want to talk about that?
no, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that because that should be watched. If you haven't seen it, it should be watched in its full. Is all I'm going to say, and you should pour yourself a drink before you start. Oh, no. Let me rephrase. You should pour yourself 4 drinks before
Right?
you start.
Yeah, get nice and toasty because it's the thing is that there is no right way or wrong way to do it, but there is what I want to say, some certain tried and true methods. You know what I mean? Kickstarter and Indiegogo have been proven to be, probably the most successful platforms right now if you're trying to crowdfund an indie comic. Yeah, you can do it through Patreon, but holy fuck, it's a grind. Yeah, you can try and get some notice on Webtoons, but it's so oversaturated with stuff. Unless if your stuff really stands out, and I mean like you have the it factor, like The Rock or something, then you're going to get a handful of views, and that's about it. Substack is still too new to tell. Zoop is still too new to tell. So I mean, really, the standards is Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And my opponent during that debate says, "Well, what happens when Kickstarter disappears or Indiegogo disappears, and what do you do?" I said, "Well, there's always going to be something to replace it. If Kickstarter goes down, Kickstarter 2.0, someone's going to make it and put it up. You know what I mean?"
Yeah, and I agree with everything you just said for comics. I think for podcasting and for other projects, Patreon and OnlyFans works wonders for cosplayers. But those platforms are designed for them. Cosplayers on Kickstarter, if you're funding a calendar, it's great, but it's not their platform. For certain platforms lend to other creative ventures. But I think with comics, I think Kickstarter and Indiegogo is the way to go, especially if whether you're using Kickstarter as a pre-order form or even to sort of pay yourself back or fund the next book. Kickstarter is built for that, and I think that one of the things that wasn't mentioned, and one of the things that I'm learning, is that Kickstarter is also a social platform. I view Kickstarter as another platform like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, because now it can direct traffic to other areas. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize who've never run a Kickstarter, is that when you're done with your Kickstarter, your thing is still up there. So if you have a link to your Kickstarter, that links to your page, and then that page can link elsewhere. And it becomes a very useful social media tool if you know how to utilize it correctly.
Well, the other cool thing about Kickstarter is that it's basically an automatic email list. So anyone that backs you on Kickstarter, whenever you do an update, they get an email on it, right? So I don't even really need to put together an email list because Kickstarter is my email list. So when I decide I'm going to announce Nyobi Outbreak, I can just put it on as a Kickstarter update, and all my previous Kickstarter backers are going to see that and get that. And it makes it really simple for me. You know what I mean?
I mean, time is money, and the simpler that something can
Time
make
is money, friend.
So yeah,
a little Warcraft reference there.
I mean, what I was saying is time is money, and anything that makes my life simpler is going to benefit me. So,
well, yeah, but you're going to hear a lot of talk about email lists and putting together an email list. One of the things that Brian Pulido is going to tell you when you watch his videos from Lady Death is that you absolutely, and you'll hear Travis Gibbs say the same thing, is that you absolutely must have an email list. And that's probably not a bad idea. I'm just too lazy to put together one. Kickstarter does it for me.
yeah, no, I'm lazy too. I got a million things going on, and it just doesn't get done, and it is a very difficult task to do it. And
That's another tip out there. I mean, if you can use MailChimp or something and put together an email list, and like a newsletter, you should go ahead and do that.
I have one, and then things happen. It is what it is. But I digress right there.
When I say you, I mean the viewing public, not you in particular.
Anybody should if you could put together an email list, you should probably do it because it'll benefit you. And there's a million ways how to do it, but I'm not an expert on that topic. There's few and far things I'm an expert on. I know how to make money selling comics, and then I know how to make money in the stock market with the money that I made in comics. So, which are two useful skills in a lot of ways. But I digress right there as well. Obviously, we've been talking for an hour and a half, and I do want to let people know where can they actually go out and buy Nyobi.
Right now, if you go to gumroad.com/Nyobi comic, you'll be able to get Nyobi there. I have to send out a package tomorrow, actually, to someone that bought it there. There's only a handful of copies there. It's just some of the leftovers from Birthright. But what will end up happening is once I know how many leftovers I have from Nyobi Origins, I'll put them up on there too. So every now and then that site will get updated, but it's only sort of like what I have on hand in a short box. Your best bet, honestly, is to back one of the crowdfunding campaigns or get them through Antarctic Press.
And so that's open previews right now, and it's to the 18th. I was saying, well, you're going and grabbing something, and you have those preview codes, I think.
Yeah. The first one is here. I'll type it in your chat. Is FEB 221211 cover A. That's it right there. And then for the Courtney Rose Dameron one.
There we go.
What am I doing here?
That's cover A right there, everybody. And that this is the Courtney Rose Dameron one. That's cover B.
Cover B, brother.
This is the code for cover A if you go to your comic shop. But I think also your comic shop, you say, hey, I'm looking for Nyobi Origins #1, and you have a preview open. I'm pretty sure they could find it. And if they can't, well, here's the preview code in case they need it. And then obviously, I don't know how comic shops are going to handle the 1 in 20, which is this one.
Well, it has a code too. It's FEB 221213.
And so I don't know, though, that one is sort of the wild card because it's really an incentive cover in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can get it from me. I'm probably going to have a few left over. In fact, we're probably going to have a couple of the foils left over from that. Matt Walden was like all blown away when we told him that was a foil cover. He's like, I don't think I've ever had a cover of mine become a foil before. And I'm like, well, you have one now.
Yeah, no, it's obviously there's a lot of stuff, and I'm sure that if you want something and you shoot up Larry, you hit up Nyobi Comics, you go on Gumroad, I'm sure there's a way how to contact you. And if you have it, I'm pretty sure, and you have extras, and everybody on the Kickstarter is going to be taken care of first, I believe, you know, and then whatever you have left over, if you have it, you'll sell it to somebody, you know, if you have it.
Yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot left over. I don't overprint too much. I print a little bit extra just to have a few copies on hand, just for like to put up on eBay or to sell privately. But I don't print like thousands of copies of the books. As I just simply don't. I don't do any shows. I don't go to any of these cons, so I don't really need all these extras.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet.
Well, we're optimistic here. We're optimistic.
That's it, brother.
Just saying, it's coming. You're gonna have that problem where day one you're gonna sell out at a show. You're like, I have no more. That's what we want here.
I have to get to a show first. I haven't been to a show in 3 years, Andrew. I mean, a lot of people haven't, but especially me. So
don't worry. We're forming a club because I'm sort of done with cons too, and. No, it's weird. I'm making money for the first time by not going to shows through sponsorship. Obviously, the Kickstarter, other sponsors I'm in discussions with, And so why would I go to a place where I make no money when I'm making money in a new way?
Yeah,
And I hate to say this, and it's going to sound messed up when I say it, but COVID has been very much a blessing for me because it forced me to evolve and it forced me down a different path that I'm making money. Now, I'm not making a hell of a lot of money, but we all start somewhere, and
sure.
making 400, 500, $600 for something that I didn't even think was possible. I mean, and then now I'm figuring out how to turn that 600 into the next sponsorship to 700 and
Yep.
so on and so forth. So for me, COVID has been a weird blessing. I don't know how to explain that, where I don't want harm to anybody,
Sure.
but it forced me to become evolved, and it's forced me
Well,
to do certain.
listen, it changed everything. We, you know, especially in the early goings, it was no conventions at all. It was all these sort of like online San Diego Comic Con and sort of like poorly put together, and no one really cared, you know. My business, honestly, you know, especially for the last 3 years, has been solely, and I mean this, you know, quite honestly, solely an online business, and business has never been better. Yeah, so I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean?
I mean, I made a big shift in my business where I was very digital, and I've been that way for almost 10 years, but almost as a hobbyist. And then when things happened, I went live, and I sucked for the first probably 20, 30 episodes live, and then I got better, and then now I am way more in the trenches, and now I'm learning all about this stuff. And clearly, I think I made the right choice by going live. And I don't know how to explain it to people, but it's been a big shift, and I have no desire to go back because I understand where the real money is, and I think you do as well. In a lot of ways, I control parts of my destiny, and it's very cool. And this is the future, in my opinion, is what this is looking like right now. I'm not saying this replaces conventions, but this is definitely going to cut into them. This type of stuff, and being online and having a digital footprint is super important. And if you're a creator who doesn't understand that, I hate to say it, but you're going to be left behind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I feel at the very least. And I'm not a comic creator, but the second I am, I understand, where we're going in the comic realm. I don't think physical comic books are going out of business. I just think how physical comic books are sold are changing. Where I think, because I haven't been in a comic. I mean, that's actually not true, but I don't go to a comic shop every Wednesday. I order my books online through previews through Midtown Comics because it is easy for me. It is legitly on the 22nd or 23rd of every single month. I pick out all my books and I'm good. And then I pick out what I want on Kickstarter, and everything's delivered to my front door. And it is fucking awesome.
Yeah. I mean, this is how we shop now, right? You know, people buy their groceries online and it gets delivered to their front door, you know?
I've done that too, and it's great. Liquor's even better. There's
Never had
no
a
good
liquor.
reason to leave your house anymore. There really is not any good reason to leave your house.
They seem to want to make it that way, yeah, and I think that's sort of a bad way to go. We as human beings need to be outside and socializing and need to go out and do things, but yeah, I mean, you can literally have everything brought to your door. That's true.
No, I like going outside, and I like taking a walk around my block, and I like walking my dog, and I like seeing people who I like. But again, having my groceries delivered and having my comic books delivered, oh, it's so much easier. It is so much easier, and it's cheaper than anything ever before. I mean, I've gotten both my Obi books in previews cheaper than what they are on cover price. So I actually buy it in previews, because if you buy it in previews, it's actually cheaper.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I think I'm
Was
Midtown.
it like a 15% discount or something or what?
Oh, I'm Midtown. I think it was like 45 to 50% off.
Jesus.
Yeah, right. I don't know how if it's how much is Niobe. I don't know if it says it on that book, but I think, like, I know the Courtney book is like 650, and on Midtown I think it was like 469. I want to say.
Well, the Courtney Rose is actually $9.99. That's what
Oh,
it
then
says.
maybe that one was 650 on Midtown then.
And then the
So
Justin Hunt is $4.99.
So that one was probably, I think, like 319 maybe.
Sure.
So it's more. It's not 50% off, but it's like 35 to 40% off, I want to say.
Mhm.
So it's pretty good considering, but I digress right
Well,
there.
they're you know, but you're talking about Midtown and stuff. I mean, they obviously buy in bulk and stuff, so they're going to get a discount. You know what I mean?
And they pass it on to their customers, which is
And they
awesome.
pass it on.
So buy from Midtown, guys. I'm trying to get you a royalty check. Because clearly that's what we're doing here. I'm trying to get you a royalty check here, but I digress. But even going further into this, and obviously we've been talking for a while now, but I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself and continue to promote yourself.
Well,
Obviously,
dude, I've been promoting myself this entire show.
well. I want to. Where can people find you? Where can people bother you? Where can people pick up some of those Paul Green covers?
Sure.
Obviously, where can people pick up this bad boy right here? Because I actually really like this one. I'm thinking about it. Because that's an awesome cover. This one's cool too, which was expensive on eBay at one point.
No, listen, that was a typo. I want to tell you that. I mean, like that was like listed at $300 or something. That was just me, like not putting in a decimal point by accident.
I thought it was $60 overpriced. Is what I thought. I was like, I'll pay like.
No, like I have it on there for like 30 or $35, dude. That's what it's supposed to be.
Because I was like, oh snap, that's an expensive comic. And I'm like, who knew that? But it wasn't even me calling you out. I'm like, whoa, that's an expensive book right there. Like,
yeah. No, it wasn't meant to be that. That was just a typo. And I didn't even know it was there until you and Steph Wilson have brought it up. I'm like, what are they talking about? And I went and go look. I'm like, oh fuck, okay, that's not the right price.
It was not even me calling you out. I was like, what the?
No, but I had no idea that I made that typo, right? I'm glad you guys brought it up. I'm like, oh shit, that's probably why the book's not selling. It's like fucking $300.
I mean, and I still think that book is undervalued. Where I think it's like a $40 to $45 book. I really think that it really should be priced a little bit more than what you're selling it for, personally. Mm-hmm. Because I've seen other Steph Wilson books.
Well, listen, I have it though for 30, 35 and no one's buying. So, it's the only one out there that's on eBay. And that's, what I'm asking. I mean, if I go any lower than like $25 on a book after eBay fees and shit, it's just not worth it,
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I think 40 to 45 is what it really should be sitting at.
I know, but I mean, if it's sitting at 30, I'm certainly not going to raise the price because no one is buying. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. But I know.
Why make it even more harder for me to sell it by raising the price?
No. Well, what you do is that you list it at 45 and then you have best offer.
Yeah, I don't do best offers. Because they always try and lowball you so fucking bad, and I hate the back and forth. I just set a price and I leave it up there for a few weeks, and if it doesn't sell, then I lower the price a little bit and see what happens. You know what I mean?
Oh, see, I live on best offer on eBay, but I digress. That this is a whole different discussion. So obviously, where can people for the final time find
well, it's just Nyobi Comic on any sort of social media, whether it's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. If you type in Nyobi Comic and I'm on that platform, it should bring me right up.
Yeah, no, that and obviously one of the things I'm saying, and I'm going to continue to say it, is that you have to support indie comics. So one of the things that you have to do is that you have to back people's Kickstarters if they have them up and running. So obviously I backed Origins, and I would not be telling you to not back a project if I didn't believe in it, or I backed it myself. And I'm very excited to read about Origins. The cover art is great. Even if you don't read the book, the cover art on Origins and the next Kickstarter, which you just showed, is going to be amazing. And so it's going to be AJ Styles good.
That's right.
Yeah. We got to mix it up here. We got to keep people on their toes.
Yeah, no, I'm following.
And so that's something to be on the lookout for. And I don't know, can you follow people on Kickstarter?
Can I what?
Can you follow people on Kickstarter?
Yeah, you can. You can follow creators on if they allow it. If they set it up so that you can follow them, you can follow them.
And so I don't know if they can follow you on Kickstarter, but if they can, obviously you should go
do be able to.
So you can be notified. And
I mean, there's creators I follow on there. Whenever they do stuff, I get little notifications and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
And so that's first and foremost. But if you really say, hey, I like what I've heard, I like the story, I like some of the cover art, one of the things that you can also do is obviously Gumroad. is a place to go. Your eBay store is another place to go to pick up some books, as well as, you know, obviously go to your comic.
You're gonna find them cheaper on Gumroad, though.
What?
You'll find them cheaper on Gumroad.
That is true, and also there's some really cool stuff out on Gumroad, and then also some people want to support their local comic shop and they want to buy a Origins from their comic shop, and so obviously if that's what you want to do, you know, obviously you should go and ask for Nyobi in your comic shop, because that's a way how to support your local comic shop. It's a way how to support obviously creators. It's a way how to support Antarctic Press and all that fun stuff. So that's another way how to get these books as well. And
check it out, and maybe if you like it, you'll come for one of our Kickstarters, you know.
Yeah, no. They will come. Book them and they will come.
That's it.
But and as far as I'm concerned, and me, obviously, you know, you can come follow me on Pop Anime Comics, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can check out my eBay store, Pop Anime Comics Collectibles, which I got a bunch of stuff up there between really cool Pop Funkos, some variants, and a variety of other books. Also, come listen to an interview. Check me out. We are coming into podcast format. If you are a backer, you got a very cool message from me about what the next 18 to 2 years looks like. And a lot of fun stuff's coming down the road. Also, if you are a comic creator, you can hit me up and maybe I will have you on as a guest. Depending if I like your project, I'm being somewhat exclusive this year for projects that I like, as well as for all the people who backed my Kickstarter. And then I got some really cool stuff coming out. Once the Kickstarter is fulfilled, I got some merch that is going to be extras, and you can pick stuff up from there, my t-shirt, and all that fun stuff. So on that note, I'm going to give you the final word. Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been boomering.
I'm going to give you the final word.
Well, you know, I mean, I was saying, man, watch your programming. You know, this man had Ben Dunn on the other day. He had Steph Wilson on. He's continuously. You do more interviews than any one person I know that's alive, man. You know, so you know, subscribe to this man's channel. Come over to Nyobi Comics YouTube channel. Check us out on Monday night. This Monday night, Andrew, we're having a really big discussion, by the way. Yeah, we're going to be talking about, is floppy still a viable way to sell comics now, and will it be so in the future? A lot of talk about people dissing on the floppy right now, and I want to you know, do a show on it.
Maybe I'll stop by.
There you go. Yeah, of course you're allowed. You know you got an open door invite.
There's 2 shows I'm banned from, but
ban? I'll never ban you, brother. Come on.
But that's a very different private conversation.
Sure.
I don't want to tell who has banned me, because it was a very, very, very bad experience.
I already know.
But I believe on that note, that is a wrap, everybody.
That's it, brother.